I needed that coffee. Hey everyone. So I want to start a new series of videos which will talk about traditional foods. Traditional to who, you may ask? Well, to everyone. What I want to do is to take inspirations from cuisine all over the world and present them in an untraditional way. Let's call these series Untraditional Traditional Foods. I'll get some vitamin D and I'll meet you back inside.
So first off, I just want to show you what is the traditional way to do this quite simple dish. Sear the outside of the tongue and then start building the sauce. The sauce is going to be very simple. You want to start off by sweating some yellow onions and adding about a teaspoon of garlic to them. Saute that until you start to see some kind of coloring on the onion. After that, add the mushrooms, which don't have to be finely sliced. Once they brown, you can add your cream. Grate some fresh nutmeg into the sauce and continue reducing it until it thickens up. Once the sauce has thickened up, add your seared tongue and toss it around to coat it. The plating is also going to be very simple. Just drop some mashed potatoes on a plate and align the beef tongue next to it. Cover the beef tongue with more sauce. Sprinkle some sliced green onion. And there you go. That is the classical way. Now let's move on to making the untraditional way. We're going to start off by prepping our vegetables. I'm going to use shallots for this recipe as they give a slightly sweeter flavor. Peel and slice the garlic in half. And if you see that there's a green sprout forming inside, you want to remove it, as it can inflict a bitter flavor to your dish. We're going to move on to the mushrooms now. The first thing you want to do is to remove the stems. We don't want to use them in this recipe as they contain a lot of water. Just remove them and save them for another time. Next, using a small teaspoon, remove the insides of the mushrooms. Once that is done, we can continue on to the next phase, which is to make the garnish. Basically, we're going to take a green onion and we're only going to use the top part. What you want to do is you want to cut it in half. Open it on your board and then using the back of your knife, you want to grate it until you start to see that the insides are quite dark green in color. Once you've achieved that, slice it across very thinly. Now, in order for the curl to occur, we're going to need some ice. So what I have here is a few ice cubes, which I'm going to drop the green onion into them and separate them before you do that. It's going to make it a lot easier to pull them out later. Fill it up with water and leave it in the fridge. Next, we're going to clean the thyme. Save the stems because we're going to use them to infuse the milk for making our mashed potatoes, which will give it a nice aroma. Next, we're going to finely dice the shallots. Remember, if you want to have a clean slice, keep the root end on the shallot. That will hold the structure of the onion, giving you much more control. You want to save the root end of the shallot for it to be infused in the milk along with the thyme branches and the bottoms of the garlic. Moving on to the mushrooms, we're going to chop them very finely. What that's going to do is help the mushroom to release most of its moisture. And in order for us to make a crunchy and crispy crumble, we want to cut it as fine as we can. So these are the ingredients you're going to need. Next, let's move on to the potatoes. Wash them and then peel them. It's important to remember not to leave the potatoes out of water for too long, as they will oxidize, giving it not so pleasant of an appearance. To the pot of water, add a few tablespoons of salt. This will help give some flavor to the potatoes before we add any more seasoning to them. Bring them to a boil and reduce to medium heat. Now let's make the milk infusion for the mashed potatoes. Add your scraps and a little bit of milk just to cover them. Bring it to a boil and turn it off immediately. Let's cut the tongue now. What you want to do is you want to cube the tongue, creating a 3 cm by 3 cm cube. We're going to use the trimmings in our crumble mixture, so don't throw them away. Finely chop them. You want them to be about the same size as the mushrooms that we've chopped earlier. Now let's grill the tongue and a cleaned mushroom. You want to score both of these items to give them some kind of charry flavor and enriching the depth of flavor that it has. The mushroom will not take as long as the beef cube, so make sure you keep an eye on the mushroom and remove it once you start to see that some water has evaporated from it. Don't forget to use salt and pepper. Once both of them are done, remove them to a separate plate. And now we're going to move on to making our crumble. Start off by melting some butter in a pan, and then adding the shallots to it. Saute that around the pan slightly. And add a teaspoon of garlic. Add about 3 to 4 tablespoons of the chopped mushrooms we chopped earlier. And saute them until you've reached a beautiful brown color. Once the mushrooms are browned, you can add about a tablespoon of your chopped tongue. Keep stirring that around until the tongue completely browns. Once that is done, transfer it over to your board and give it a good chop. You want to achieve a very fine texture to your crumble. Transfer it to a clean bowl for later use. We're going to start making our cream sauce. Pour a 1/4 cup of 18% cream into a sauce pot. Add salt, freshly ground pepper, stir that around, and add a touch of nutmeg. You want to keep the sauce on the lowest heat possible and constantly use your silicone spatula to mix the sides and preventing them from burning. Keep an eye on the sauce and don't leave it. It should thicken up after about 5 to 6 minutes. Check the doneness of your potatoes by piercing them with a fork. Next, strain the milk mixture that we made for the mashed potatoes. transfer a half of a potato into your ricer. Lightly press on the ricer to remove any excess moisture from the potatoes, and continue by fully ricing them into the bowl. I recommend doing this in stages, as too much can overwhelm your ricer, causing a lot of the mixture to spill to the sides. Once you've riced the potatoes, you can slowly add the infused milk and a piece of butter. Don't add too much at one time, or else you're gonna end up with a runny mashed potatoes. Transfer the mash in a piping bag, which has a star tip at the bottom of it. Let's heat up our cube of beef tongue and mushroom in the oven for about 1 minute. And it's time to plate. That's it, an untraditional mushroom cream beef tongue.